Welcome, everyone. This is the lecture about communication in the workplace from Chapter 10 in the textbook. Now, this lecture will be a continuation of the more recent ones. We've talked about relationships. We've talked about relationships with our friends, with our family, and communicating with them. Now, this might be one of the more applicable chapters in this course because we spend a significant portion of our lives at work, working with someone, working for someone, or being the boss. And it is a huge part of our lives. And let's talk about this slide. So, this slide is about the workplace. And here's a definition from the chapter. It's called vocational anticipatory socialization. That's the idea that we learn about the workplace from other places before we start working. We learn about it from our friends, from our parents, from adults around us, from TV, from media. We learn about the workplace before we ever enter the workplace for ourselves. Organizations are talked about metaphorically a lot, especially when we talk about corporate organizations. They like to use words like, this is our culture, this is how we operate. And you might think of a corporation to operating more of a machine, but you might notice that a lot of companies that were once identified kind of like we operate as a machine, we do the same things the same way every time, they are adjusting the way they do things to account more for the people. But at the same time, there are companies that are pushing the limits in the other direction. I recently watched a video about an Amazon driver explaining all of the rules and regulations they had to follow beyond the rules of the road. They had rules about when they get out of the car, what they have to do when they're in the car driving. Their hands have to stay on the wheel. You have to stay ready in case any unanticipated thing might happen while you're driving. And so they have extra regulations, extra rules within the organization of Amazon for their drivers and how they handle that. Another, well, we mentioned it before with the culture, and that's a lot of the way the things that fall under the umbrella of culture are kind of how people dress. Do the people that work there share a lot of similar interests? I know some people who used to work with Cotopaxi. They're an outdoor gear brand, and it makes sense that part of their culture within that company is they have a lot of interest in outdoor activities, whether that's rock climbing, hiking, backpacking. It makes sense that a lot of people who work in an outdoor gear brand company would have this kind of culture of outdoor appreciation, of outdoor engagement. And the last metaphor we want to talk about when it comes to organizations is that it's an instrument of domination. This refers to the idea that work controls so much of our lives, of our time. If you were to go and survey people going to work or coming home from work, how many of them are like, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to spend most of my time with? Unsurprisingly, a extremely large number of people out there would rather be doing anything else other than work. They would rather be out enjoying the sun with their feet up. They would rather spend more time with their kids. They would rather do something that makes them feel more appreciated. And some jobs, leave you feeling very satisfied, leave you feeling very fulfilled. But others, you do it to put food on the table. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Workplace goals. There are two main types of goals it talks about in the chapter. There are instrumental goals and relational goals. So instrumental goals are the goals that relate directly to you doing your job, your performance. And relational goals would be establishing friendships, establishing a social network, or establishing a relationship with a mentor to help you learn, improve, and kind of guide you on your career. In workplaces, there are a number of different types of organizations, and many have this idea of a hierarchy where there's a boss and there's subordinates and there's an organization. Like, this person is my boss, but they have a boss, and that person has a boss. And anyway, it creates this kind of pyramid shaped hierarchy. Now, not all organizations are and businesses are organized in that manner. Some have more of a flat organization where nearly everyone is equal and a whole bunch of people report to one, or it might be that you report to a team where there's a group that act as the guiding force, the boss, the board of directors. And so when we talk about the workplace and the hierarchy, we often talk about how we behave in a different way when we're in the workplace. And we put on this professional face, you might call it, where you speak more professionally, you behave in a different way than you would if you were casual and relaxed. And that's how you would, that goes right along with your workplace identity. So my wife, she works in a residential treatment center, and that's for teenage girls who struggle with anxiety, depression, eating disorders, things like that. And she frequently visits with other people in the same industry. They go to conferences, they often have these meetings where they come together to discuss things that are concerning to their industry, whether that's laws, regulations, and things like that. But part of that is establishing these professional relationships with others in the similar industry. And that's like when you create your workplace identity. It's like how others see you. Instead of like a resume, that's like the relationship you build with others that you work with and who you are at work. And sedimentation is the idea that when we repeat those practices, they kind of layer over time. We build them up, we do the same things, and it creates a routine, and eventually that will create a structure of like, this is how things are done. Industrial time is, when you think about a workplace, it's when the employer expects you to be to work at a certain time. They expect it's the time that they're actually getting work from their employees. And so if you show up at a factory and you hit the time clock and clock in, clock out, that's what we're talking about with industrial time. Negative workplace relationships are essentially the opposite of the positive ones. They're, instead of having a positive friendship that can help you get more work done and work better as a team, you could have disruptive friendships where you spend all your time chatting about something and don't get any work done. Another potential negative relationship is if you had a romantic relationship with someone at work and it doesn't work out, and there's this negative fallout where now you can't work on the same team or you don't work well together anymore, and creates a rift at work that makes things harder all around. Another potential problem is a hostile relationship where someone's actively antagonistic or passively antagonistic, and they're trying to undermine you or vice versa. Another unfortunate reality is sexual harassment. And I want to encourage you again to keep records of what you do, who you meet with, what the meetings are about, to protect yourself from situations that might arise. And that can be on either side, whether you are the boss or whether you are the employee. Because it's unfortunate, but whether they are true allegations or false allegations, they can extreme damage your career in the extreme. All right, that's all I've got for this chapter, and I think this is the last lecture for this class. So good luck on the final.